Welcome to the channel, English for Immigrants. Here you will learn how to think directly in English without needing to translate each word mentally. This is an essential step to becoming fluent and communicating with confidence. If you still feel that your thinking is stuck in your native language, keep watching, because today we will explore powerful techniques to transform your way of learning English. Thinking in English is one of the most important steps to achieving fluency in the language. When a person still mentally translates everything they hear or want to say, the communication process becomes slower and more complicated. To avoid this, it is essential to develop methods that allow total immersion in the language, training the brain to process information directly without having to rely on the native language. Fluency is not just about speaking fast, but about being able to think and structure sentences without interruptions. This means that the way you expose yourself to English has a direct impact on your ability to think in the language. The first step to thinking in English is to increase exposure to the language throughout the day. Change the language on your phone, watch videos and movies without subtitles, and listen to music while paying attention to the lyrics. The more exposure you have to English, the easier it will be for it to become the dominant language in your thoughts. This constant contact allows you to start associating words directly with their meanings, without needing to rely on translation. The idea is to start creating a gradual immersion in the language, incorporating English into your daily life in a way that does not depend on translations. If you don't have much daily contact with the language yet, start with small changes, like changing the language settings on your phone and social media. One of the most effective ways to train thinking in English is to practice describing everything around you using only words in the desired language. Observe objects and try to name them, describe their color, texture, shape, and function in English. This is an excellent exercise. Instead of thinking, "This is a table," you should directly formulate the idea, "This is a table." By creating this habit, the brain begins to associate words and concepts without needing translations. This creates a direct connection between the object and the vocabulary of the language without depending on your native language. If you want to speed up this process, try creating short stories in your mind in English. Imagine a common situation from daily life, such as going to the supermarket, and try to mentally narrate everything that happens in English. For example, you can think, "I'm walking into the supermarket. I see a lot of fresh fruits. I need to buy some apples and oranges. I'm going to the cashier to pay." This type of practice trains your brain to think more spontaneously, helping to build sentences without the need to translate word by word. At first, it might be more difficult, but as you get used to the routine of thinking in English, the process becomes more fluid and natural. The same can be done with your daily routine. Upon waking up, you can mentally narrate the actions in English, such as, "I'm getting up now," "I'm brushing my teeth," "I'm going to work." This type of practice accelerates fluency by forcing the brain to think directly in the language without interference from the native language. To intensify this process even further, you can create daily challenges. For example, choose one day a week to think only in English whenever you are performing an action. When grabbing a glass of water, mentally say, I'm drinking water. When walking to work, think, I'm walking to work. This strategy helps train the brain to associate thoughts with the English language, eliminating the need for translation. Another powerful method for thinking in English is to use flashcards with images instead of translated words. When using a flashcard with a picture of an apple, for example, the goal is to associate the image directly with the word apple without passing through the translation. This type of learning stimulates the brain to process English naturally without the need to rely on the original language. The more this is practiced, the faster thinking in English becomes. In addition to flashcards, making daily notes in the language is an effective way to train thinking in the language. Writing a journal, making to-do lists, and recording thoughts in English are ways to develop this habit. Even simple sentences like, "Today I need to buy milk," or "It is a sunny day," already contribute to strengthening the connection of thinking with the foreign language. Avoiding mentally translating sentences is also crucial. Instead of thinking, "How do I say this in English?" you should try to reformulate the idea directly in the target language with the words you already know. For example, if someone doesn't know how to say, "I'm hungry," they can use "I want to eat" to convey the same idea. This is a big step in developing natural communication without the need to mentally translate everything you want to express. This translation avoidance process helps build fluency quickly because the brain learns to adapt to the new language without constantly reverting to the native language. Another way to force thinking in English is to talk to yourself in the language. This can be done aloud or mentally, describing what is happening at the moment or planning the next activity of the day. Creating small internal conversations and imagining situations where you would need to speak English helps the brain get used to the language as something natural. This practice can be done during daily activities, like when preparing breakfast or taking a walk. An interesting tactic is, when reading or watching something in English, try not to translate or look up the meaning of every new word. Instead, focus on the overall context and the words you already know. This encourages the brain to trust the general comprehension rather than literal translation. For example, when reading an article in English, even without understanding some words, try to grasp the main message of the text and how the words you know help form the meaning. This inference technique helps develop the ability to think in English in a more intuitive way. The more you practice this technique, the faster your brain will learn to understand English without needing translations. Additionally, a great practice to think directly in English is digital immersion. Look for apps and games that challenge your brain to use English in everyday situations, like word games, quizzes, or vocabulary challenges. The more interactivity you can have with the language, the faster the internalization process will be. When you learn while playing or in a fun situation, your brain absorbs the language more effectively because you are emotionally engaged. Another interesting tip is to sign up for forums or discussion groups in English about topics you enjoy, so you can practice writing and reading while interacting with other speakers of the language. Another technique is using the spaced repetition strategy. This involves reviewing the words or sentences you've learned at spaced intervals according to your forgetting curve, helping to fix them in long-term memory. Apps like Anki or Memrise Use this technique and are perfect for expanding vocabulary and improving comprehension without needing constant translation. The more these words are reviewed and internalized in the correct context, the faster your brain will be able to access them when you think in English. This speeds up the process of fixing vocabulary, and over time, your brain will be able to retrieve these words more easily. Progress will come with dedication and persistence, and over time, thinking in the language will become something natural and automatic. The key is to stay in constant contact with English, whether listening, reading, writing, or speaking. Creating an environment that supports learning, practicing describing the world around you, making notes in English, avoiding mental translations, and creating immersion situations are key steps in transforming English into a fluid and natural language in your mind. When you begin implementing these tactics into your daily routine, you will notice that English becomes more accessible and easier to think in. This is not a process that happens overnight, but consistency in effort makes all the difference. Keep challenging yourself to think in English, and soon you will see great results. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these tips, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content on learning English.